gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Cause baby, I feel real good and I wish I would. Watch out now. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out now. I'm ready for a good time, and I came to
Hey everybody, welcome to Business
came
Over
to
Beer
move. Got a
podcast.
fresh haircut,
I'm your
new shoes.
host, Ben Surratt, and I am in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, in Fifth Ward Brewing. I am with Zach and Ian. Man, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I know we got a lot to talk about, but before we do, just introduce yourselves and a little bit about Fifth Ward.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm Ian Wenger. Grew up here in Wisconsin, just north of Oshkosh. Came here for college in 2009, and met this guy about a year later, and kind of rest is sort of history from there, I suppose.
We'll get into history for sure, but cool.
Yep, my name's Zach Clark, born and raised Oshkosh, so ain't leaving now at this point.
You're stuck.
Yeah, kind of stuck with the business, so.
So when did Fifth Ward, before we get into the beer, I'm really thirsty, so, but before we do, just talk a little bit about Fifth Ward. So when did it first open?
We opened in 2017. Prior to that, I think it was about 2012 is when initially 2012, 2013 is when we initially talked about trying to learn how to make beer.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was managing a kitchen, Dublin's Irish Pub in town, which they started getting into craft beer early on, and so we got exposed to craft beer really early on, like right when we turned 21. So that was kind of like the gateway to that whole thing. Had some ideas where, at that point, maybe wanted to open a restaurant, and then I was like, okay, maybe we open a restaurant that has its own beer. Moving on from that. Forget the restaurant portion, and managing a kitchen is a lot of work. So as the craft beer boom was happening, we kind of moved into just a brewery. Kind of felt like this town was missing a full-fledged distributed brewing company. Mm-hmm. So I approached Ian, said, hey, do you want to start doing this? Basically turned my college house, the basement, into basically a mini brewery.
Jeez.
So invested in everything to make a half barrel at a time, and we would brew once a week and do a bunch of, packaging, cleaning throughout the week. We're working full-time, going to school, teaching ourselves how to make beer. Eventually wrote a business plan.
Man.
And then... from what I say, 2013 to 2017, so it almost took 4 or 5 years from idea. Everything was funded, not non-family funded. So we raised everything privately.
Wow.
This is a pretty big project for.
I was gonna say the planning stages probably took that like 2 or 3 beginning years from just writing the business plan, and then we dove pretty deep into like the homebrew club here. We're lucky enough to have the Society of Oshkosh Brewers homebrew club in town. It's like one of the oldest in Wisconsin, if not the nation, and they started in 1991.
Oh wow.
They're still going strong now, and we're happy actually. They have all their monthly meetings here now, unless they kind of go out about once in a while, but we're sort of the home base for the SOBs, so it's kind of cool. Came full circle in that way. And actually one of the other breweries in town, Bare Bones, Jody over there, was also just another SOB from the homebrew club.
Yeah.
Like Zach was saying, it's like we really just reached out to as many people as we could, either through the homebrew club, friends of friends, friends of family. Basically, we just called it our blind date period. Is about 1.5 years of just literally meeting random people. Like, hey, here's our business plan. Here's some homebrew. What do you think? You want to give us some cash to help open this place up? And
dude, that is amazing. And for how, this is no disrespect, but you guys are younger, and to have that kind of patience and the focus and determination at that age, like right out of college, that says a lot.
Well, and like you know, and I imagine those people we were talking to.
Yeah,
too,
they
know,
gotta
a
be
couple
older, right?
26, 27-year-old
Yeah,
guys coming
yeah.
up and saying, "Hey, we have this plan. We've never run a business before, but you know, we're you know, like he's mentioned, he's running the kitchen. That's where him and I had met, was in that kitchen there, and you know, so we knew the culinary aspect. We thought we had good palate, or the beer was good. You know, it just sort of putting our best foot forward every time we had those meetings and hoping that they would see the idea that we had, you know.
Well, the reason why I know your beer is good because I had it, and your beer is starting in front of me, so I want to start getting into the beer. So where should we start with? What do you think?
So we got, I would say, probably 1869 and Hazelder Levitt. So our two, I think this is kind of the flight that has sort of our like flagship sort of stuff per se. We only have 2 year-round beers that we do at the moment.
And this is
1869 Blonde Ale, so that's one of them.
Okay.
That one we've been brewing since 2019. It was actually a collaboration with the Oshkosh Yacht Club. They were celebrating their 150th anniversary. They were looking for a beer they could serve throughout the summer for the different events that they were having. Something easy and drinkable.
Yeah.
We like Miller High Life when we're not drinking craft beer, and so we kind of formulated a recipe as close to that as we could, while keeping it in ale.
It's kind of like a nod to it. You know, we followed the finishing gravity of the Miller High Life, which gives you a little bit sweeter of a finish. So like a lot of these light beers might finish like 1.1, 1.2% sugar in solution. This is 1.8. So ambers started to get up in the, like, you know, sweeter ambers into the 2s and 3s. So it's definitely a little bit sweeter on the finish, which we like.
Yeah.
There's what we call a boutique malt, Halcyon, Thomas Fawcett's Sons Halcyon. We messed around with multiple malts in this when we were first brewing it. We used Golden Promise. We used Low Color Maris Otter.
Man, that's good.
I think there's like 1 or 2 other ones that we've done. And then once we brewed it with this, it just seemed like, okay, this has great malt flavor.
Yeah.
Good balance, not too much maltiness.
I was just going to say it's not at all. I mean, you know, a lot of them you can get that, I don't know, that almost lager post, like that, the milk spit, you know what I mean? Like you have a little bit. This doesn't have any of that.
Yeah.
This is really good.
It's I mean, that's something I think too we can get into a little bit later, but like our recipes rely a lot on base malts. You know, a lot of breweries are filling up a silo of grain, and that's what they're using for 95% of the beers they're brewing as their base malts. We have it can be expensive and it's a little bit more labor intensive, but we like sort of divvying those up, and we have probably 4 or 5 different base malts that we're using, and the majority of them are coming from the UK. We just are finding the quality.
Wow.
It's something also that we think sets our flavor just to a different kind of different lane than a lot of the other breweries around here.
That's awesome. So I lived in the West Coast for 20 years, damn near. Moved back in 2023, and out there, IPAs are the thing.
Yeah.
And back here, there's a more appreciation for them.
Yeah.
I think a little bit, but it's still not fully embraced in the beer community or in the community. The people who have their casual beer drinkers.
Yeah.
But you guys, I tried, and I know it's not here, which is good. I had the 7, the triple hazy IPA. Oh my god. I had it. My brother-in-law got it for me for the podcast we did with him. That's why I reached out to you guys. That thing sipped like it was just a regular hazy IPA. It was so good. It was like you had to be careful with that beer.
They're dangerous.
So talk a little bit about the IPA and what your experience with the IPA here.
So throughout the past, getting started with IPAs, we were kind of learning from some of our mistakes, and we decided to invest heavily into equipment that actually sets ours kind of above and beyond. So first of all, we bought a spin bot, which allows us to basically make sure all of our hops are purged of oxygen, as well as cycling those hops and getting all of the true flavor out of them. We don't have to use as many, so we get better yields. We use less raw materials. And then after that, we also did a pretty big expansion on our brew house a couple of years back, where we ended up putting in a very custom whirlpool and what we call a tube in tube. So we can send wort from our kettle at just after boiling. We send it through the tube in tube, so we can hit whatever temperature as low as like 165 and above. We can just digitally set an automatic temperature, and then the water coming in to chill that is all automatic. So we hit the specific temperatures that we want in the whirlpool. Then we hit that lower whirlpool temperature that really gives that, like, I believe, balanced softness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, I think to our, like he's saying, it's like we especially specifically you're drinking Hazer Levitt, I believe, right now. So that another one of our flagships, one of the only 2 year-round beers along with 1869. That one we started developing right when hazy IPAs started kind of coming into their own. 2018, 2019.
Right.
Lion's Tail up in Neenah was brewing Juice Cloud, and they were selling tons of Juice Cloud. We specifically too wanted to formulate something that we could use our house yeast in and not have to get different yeast, bring different yeast in and things like that. So we keep it in rotation, keep it always being brewed, and keep it economically feasible for us to do that. So we spent quite a bit of time sort of developing the recipe using, flaked oats. We do use a little bit of, so it's a pale ale base malt, flaked oats, a few other things in there. And then all Citra and Simcoe hops. So they're very like classic in the way that modern American hops are. I mean, they've been around since 2007. I think Citra came out. I know Simcoe was earlier than that. So they're not like brand new hops by any means, but they're definitely like mainstays of the craft IPA world. And
I mean, you can tell, like, you guys you're focusing on making the IPA correctly and the hazy IPA correctly. It's easy. At least in the past, it used to be easy just to hide your mistakes in IPAs.
Yeah.
But the minute I took a sip of this, like, I got the grapefruit immediately.
Yeah.
And, like, there's nothing hiding in that. It's real, like, the hops you taste right away. But you don't, like, again, something about your beer, I don't get that aftertaste, that bitter. It's very, it finishes really, really light.
For smoothness, and that's one of those things that I think across the board, our beers we're looking to be like balanced and drinkable. I'm kind of skipping ahead, I think, but like this idea of like the rule of 2, I think we've always said, it's like I want you to be able to drink a beer. You go, damn, that was good. Let me have another. Rather than like, that was a good IPA, but boy, was it bitter. I'm gonna need something a little bit lighter to kind of cleanse the palate or whatever. But and also the water here in Oshkosh is fairly hard. We have a couple different mineral profiles that we utilize when we're brewing these beers, and it's either hazy IPA mineral profile or essentially everything else. And so that was one of those things that we really tried to dial in as well. And, I think without using any specialized, hazy IPA yeast, things like that, we kind of get to maintain a balance between sort of that West Coast, like a nod to West Coast. It's New England in execution, but it has that balance where it isn't overly juicy or thick.
No,
or
not at all.
Sweet, I think, was another thing that we were running into, especially in those early years of hazies.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to be sweet because that was one of the kind of a turnoff for me, in those IPAs.
Yeah, for sure. So. I mean, this is delicious.
Keep going. I mean,
I got 4 more beers to taste.
I want to talk about the barrel aged beer.
Yes,
for
let's
sure.
do that. So what should I? By the way, deep cuts was really good too.
Deep cuts, we don't. To the IPA note, we actually don't.
Is this a pale? Just a regular pale, right?
So it's a rye pale ale.
No, that one is not.
Just kidding. Who knows?
So this one, I was super stoked about this because this idea, I was like, okay,
I'm gonna grab another beer.
Americanize an ESB kind of. It was my spin on an ESB. So this we used Baird Scottish Ale Malt, which CMG usually does not stock. So I had to I knew this. I wanted to use this way ahead of time, and they had to get it from a different warehouse, or I can't remember if they had to special order it in. But I read about this malt and gives a specific breadiness to it. It's got a really good solid malt profile. So it's not as much as a Vienna or Munich, but it's I like to say in between a Maris Otter and kind of some of those German malts. So it's got this good depth to it and good good.
And then hops too. I think it was just Chinook or I'd have to look back, but it was kind of a classic, just C hop, very American combination. It's kind of got that grassy sort of like.
Yeah, because for an ESB, it doesn't even. Is it an ESB?
Well,
We call
like
it
I
a
said,
pale ale.
Okay.
it was a brainchild.
I
of that.
get it.
So we're blending multiple. We legitimately market it as a pale ale, but
But it doesn't. Again, like you have a very great way of. You get the initial that first sip when I tasted it, I got everything. I got the nose. I got the bitterness. But then it smoothed out into the malty caramel almost finish, but not too overpowering. You have a great way of finishing your beers.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, it
No,
really,
so that also goes along with finishing gravities. Super
Balance.
super
Is key.
like religious on where our finishing gravities come in. The Hazer love it. Like we messed with that, and like we have a set like here. This is the best. We've had customers notice, as we were messing with it, hey, something's a little off. I was like, yeah, we're kind of messing with how much sugar's in that
Little
left in
sweet,
solution.
little dry, kind of either direction.
So that is super important that we follow with a lot of beers.
yeah. All right, barrel aged. Let's
Yeah.
do this.
So I guess just as a preface, we've been making barrel aged beer basically since we've opened. Our methods have changed over time and kind of been refined, and just processes and things like that. We take a lot of pride in them. It's one of my favorite things that we do here, just because it is probably the best sort of example of the combination of art and science when it comes to brewing. So it kind of starts with our equipment and recipe development. We love barley wine. It's kind of our shtick when it comes to the barrel aged stuff. We've kind of gotten known for our barley wine, sort of
gonna switch
in a
That's
funny.
Big Willie. The
Yeah.
Here,
Oh,
here,
all
let me take
right.
care of it.
Thanks, bro.
But basically, so we brew our beers. One of my biggest pet peeves with barrel aged beer to begin with is when you get a stout or any type of barrel aged beer and it is just watery thin. The barrel is just overpowering. You can tell that they brewed an imperial stout. They maybe filled one bourbon barrel with it and they sent the rest off into the market. That probably was a delicious imperial stout, whatever.
Yep.
But that 1 year in a barrel had made it hot, boozy mess. Just thin, watery, hot, boozy mess. So when we went into these, developing these recipes, we essentially consider the barrel part of the ingredient list. We know that the beer going into it is going to change because of the barrel and because of the time, and then we plan for that in the recipe development.
That's Big Willie.
Yeah.
Yep. Basically, we're brewing these beers. If finish it, once they're done fermenting, if you were to just pull a keg off and try it, they're fine, but they're not the best thing that they could be. Right? They're not meant to be drank like that.
Yeah.
So basically, we double mash, which we've had some piping installed in our equipment, which allows us to essentially run our mash with our grain and whatever water. That first one, we pull all that sugar water out that wort, we collect it in our kettle, we clean out our mash tun, get all the grain out of there, and then we were actually able to run wort from the kettle back over to the mash tun, and so we grain it again with the wort from that first batch. So we're essentially doubling up on the sugar content, and then after that, assuming we don't get a stuck mash and that everything goes smoothly, we get all of our wort into our kettle. We have about literally fill it up, probably be 24 barrels or something, but we can get about 22 barrels of liquid into that kettle, and that's how much we put in there. Typically, you're boiling for a certain amount of time. We're literally just boiling for gravity here, or volume. We're going from 22 barrels down to 16 is what our finishing volume is.
Damn.
And that takes 9 hours.
It's 18 to. I think it's 18 to 24 hours.
Basically, the idea is that by 9 p.m. we're leaving here and the kettle is up to a boil. When we come back the next morning, we check that volume and we just kind of keep checking it until it's down to that. That extended boil period, though, literally turns wort from maybe being a dark amber into what you're seeing here, almost brown, stout colored character. And that's just the caramelization of sugars. And because of that caramelization, those sugars are becoming longer and longer, molecularly. Those are harder to ferment. So essentially, we're increasing the unfermentables in that beer, which is what's going to give us that thick residual mouthfeel. It's going to give us that residual sweetness. Then we ferment them out. Because they're such a crazy high gravity, they and depending on the generation of yeast that we have going at the time, it could be a million different things. Basically, we're shooting for anywhere between 10 and 12% ABV finishing gravity on those.
Yeah.
So we've had them as low as 8.5 or 9. We've had them as high as 14.
Yeah.
Either way, doesn't really matter because that fermented beer isn't going into kegs, it's going into barrels, and then we're just literally stuffing those away in the back
And
warehouse.
what kind of barrels do you use? Is it whiskey? Like what kind of
Bourbon, yeah.
Bourbon.
The majority.
Yeah, bourbon. Oh yeah.
Heaven Hill is the distillery that the guy we got our barrels from.
A lot of old Fitzgerald.
We've had
like
some
that.
Elijah Craig, a lot of Elijah Craig when we could get them. Those are always good ones, but we kind of found that like usually like if you get your like 5-year whiskey compared to like a 10-year Elijah
Oh
Craig,
my God.
the finishing on the beer is pretty similar. It's not like this whiskey's going to give it a specific flavor.
That was one of those
a lot
things
of it's
that was
the process that we do that really make it.
Yeah. Oh
But-
man.
So basically, we release these beers. It's been more often now, but in the past, it's was always once a year, and that was in November for our anniversary party. We'd do like 4 or 5 different barrel aged beers, if not more. But basically, we literally pull all the barrels down, set up a table or two, and just fill glass like plastic cups, and then we sample everything. Then try and take notes for each barrel. We know going into it, okay, like this year, we knew we were going to do 2 stouts, a barley wine, and a wheat wine. Plus a couple extra stouts long term, but so we pick these barrels. We knew we were gonna do a cookies and cream stout, let's say. So we found what's the most chocolate forward barrel. Let's start with that and let's build on that. We know the gravity we're shooting for. We've kind of found the sweet spot with these barrel aged beers, and that's just simple math. Then we're checking the gravity of that beer in the barrel, and then basically, all right, if we have 2 barrels that are 12 Plato and 2 that are 6. Well, that's perfect. If we're looking for 9 Plato, we just blend those together and we're right in the middle. So the sweetness level. But yeah.
I mean, this is. I mean, at the nose, you get the raisin.
Yeah.
I mean, you get that raisin, and then the vanilla.
Yeah.
There's a vanilla at the end there.
Yeah, you get some cool, definitely different characteristics.
Oh, each sip is different too, which I like.
You guys like worms. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and out of the barrels, because our back warehouse, obviously it's not temperature controlled, so we got barrels from literally the bottom to 13 feet in the air. So in the summer, that back warehouse is getting 80 degrees, 90 degrees.
Right.
And so
70 at the floor,
Right,
90 at the
yeah,
ceiling.
the
So
ceiling.
So we have noticed some correlation to middle barrels, top barrels, bottom barrels.
yeah, the speed that they're aging and things like that.
Yeah, but you'll it's kind of funny. I like to say you get a woodsy, like a Menards type barrel. You'll get a vanilla, or then you'll get a caramel, and then it's
Weird
we take
coconut curveballs.
yeah, you take those components and blend them together because we want a little bit of a sweetness, we want a little bit of dry, a little bit of maybe complexity where we get the raisin or the caramel or the vanilla. So that's what helped us, because I don't know if you mentioned it, we have 3 or 4 different stout recipes that we actually do. So,
Jeez.
And so what ends up happening then is these beers are blends. So the barley wine that we're drinking is I think it was 4 barrels. One of them was 30 months old. One was 24, and 2 were 18. Right. So they're all different batches, but blended into that final product. So it's just giving us way more control over that finished product, and like I said, allowing it's that art and science kind of where they meet. It's the artisticness of picking out these specific flavors for reasons, and then the science behind actually getting that finished beer to be what you want it to be in terms of gravity. And
Dude. All right.
they're a lot of fun.
I'm going to keep going here. I'm sorry.
tiramisu. That's the next
Next
barrel
one?
age. Yeah.
Okay. Tiramisu.
So yeah, then this is, and obviously the barley wine didn't have any adjuncts in it. This is a blend of stouts that's got coffee beans.
Yeah.
And
They give you the chills.
Yeah,
Ugh.
lady fingers.
Vanilla?
Some vanilla, and then we've used some Bavarian cream flavoring.
That could be it. Woo! Holy cow, that's different.
Yeah.
That's good.
A little sweeter. I mean, sweeter in execution. We can get away with that with the stouts a little bit more than the barley wines.
My goodness. I love that.
Yeah,
I'm not a darker beer guy. I'm just not, but my wife, she loves it.
Yeah.
She would be all about this one.
No, we're super proud of the barrel aged stuff. I mean, all the breweries are kind of doing
my
them. You kind of
goodness,
have to give
guys.
them a shot, but
That's so good.
Thank you.
Seriously.
There aren't a ton putting in like the effort of like blending and really thinking about them in that way. Like I said, there's so many breweries that just make an imperial stout, fill barrels,
at the end. Like you guys really take care of making it balanced. Like I'm telling you,
that barley wine's 15.1%. I mean, that is 13.6%. I mean, they're big beers too, you know.
But they don't have like the that gut punch like some of them have. It's more of like slowly, like the second, the third sip, you're gonna be like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, my stomach's getting a little warm now.
Yeah.
Man, that's good.
And I think fermentation process, fermenting out beers like this is not easy. We use our house yeast, so we use Cal Ale, White Labs Cal Ale as our house yeast. It makes our hazy IPA, it makes our light beers, it makes our amber ales, and it makes our barrel aged beers. So the type of the amount of oxygen, nutrients, other things like that. With these, we actually have to do like an oxygenation schedule. So it's not a first initial oxygen dose before fermentation. There's specific timing on hitting it with more oxygen, and it is very important. Basically, what you're doing is you're getting that yeast cell. You want to catch it after it's done its first budding process. Then right then and there, you want to try and get it another shot of oxygen. So then basically it can go through another budding process to make sure you got super healthy yeast.
Yeah. Like we're hoping we end up with twice as much yeast after these fermentations than we would on a typical fermentation. It just takes that much. And it is funny because like sometimes it's like they'll just clunk out real
I'm
sweet.
putting it back, not because it's not, but man,
you gotta dry it. Yeah.
So next,
this is another sour
blueberry pie.
This is something we found a lot of success. Yeah, something we found a lot of success with in the past couple of years is like our pastry sours. We've gotten pretty good at developing these recipes too, so they're not all the same and they kind of taste a little bit different. But basically, we use
cinnamon.
Yeah, so we use some pie spice in it. So this one's blueberry, vanilla bean.
It's called the
like
pie
a
spice
blend.
Yeah, pie spice blend.
It's got like cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice.
Whoa, man.
And then
that tastes like Christmas.
Yeah, and then we use some graham cracker too as well.
Oh, wow.
So it's like kind of give that crust effect. But yeah, we've done this with like peach. We've done mixed berry. Coming up we're going to be doing a lemon meringue version, a strawberry tart. And then this is Hades' Secret. This one I like. This is actually the first beer we ever brewed here when we first opened. It's a chocolate mint porter. Yeah, it's probably a third or fourth time we've ever brewed it. But honestly, it's my favorite thing drinking right now on the taps, personally. Because it's very cocoa forward.
It is not what you think when you. This is not what you think.
It's a sessionable 6% mint stout. Who would or mint porter. Who would have thought?
Yeah, this is like.
Yeah.
So originally, I think. Yeah, this recipe originally came from.
It's good, right?
Yeah, it really is.
It's like dark chocolate and mint is like, but also a porter.
Yeah, early on when we were homebrewing, there was a community garden. So we'd go there. We were dumping our grain there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, just take a little bit of some stuff." And one time we picked a bunch of chocolate mint, and we're like, "Let's throw this into a beer," and then literally made this beer homebrewing first. And then this is one that definitely.
We took to this is. I mean, people are like, you can't see. Yeah, you can't taste it. Obviously, you can see it, but man,
it's not like toothpaste.
It's not. I think so many people think that like when they see mint, it's like what?
It's like weird. Refreshing. It's like kind
of like how a mojito would be.
Yeah. It keeps it dry almost. Like it helps it not seem sweet. And you get that like baking.
My goodness.
Like cocoa powder aspect to it too.
That's really good.
Business Over Beer podcast Midwest edition continues next week with my interview with Zach and Ian of Fifth Ward Brewing Company.
Everybody watch out. Watch out now. I'm ready for a good time, and I came to groove. The whole band's here, and we came to move. Got a fresh haircut and 2 new shoes. We're here all night.